Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. It's going to be my 10.2 Destruction Warlock feedback video. Now, the Clash tree and AF have already come out, but Destro was a spec that got a handful of changes in 10.15, but still some things, Destro tree, a bit of mobility, madness, infernal brand, some things here and there could use some attention, tweaking some tuning, maybe some changes overall. So in this tonight's video, I want to, well, talk about those potential changes. Like always, weak cores and add-ons, links down below, Twitch and Discord if you want them. They're all for free for you guys. And once again, well, I guess like always, I want to give a shout out to my patrons and things. For all supporting on Patreon, guys, like always, thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon or following me on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok or anything up here, links all that up there. And yeah, let's jump into it. Okay, so getting into the destruction feedback, there's actually a bug that I want to talk about first off, which has been present since, I think, alpha or beta. It revolves around Backlash, the talent here, and Backdraft, which is granted by casting Conflict Rate. Now, let's say I cast Conflict Rate. There is Backdraft, which is granted by casting Conflict Rate. And if I get meleeed by this mob, hopefully I get a Backlash proc. Okay, so there's Backlash. Now, Backdraft failed, but cool thing, I can Conflict Rate again, so I have both buffs up. But when I cast an Incinerate here, which is instant cast in the Backlash, it consumes the Backdraft stack, which shouldn't happen theoretically because the actual Incinerate's instant cast, once again, from the actual Backlash proc. Backdraft says, Conflict Rate reduces the cool of the cast time of your next Incinerate, Chaos Bolt, or Soulfire by 30%, max 2 charges, but technically, there really isn't a cast time because Backlash makes Backdraft instant cast, so just a bug, should hopefully be fixed, likely maybe be looked at some point, but yeah, wanted to point that out. So now, let's get into the other talent points of, I guess, relevancy. Okay, so getting into the actual talent points and all that kind of stuff here, feedback-wise, the first thing I want to hit on is the row that comes out of Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, Pyrogenics, and then Inferno or Cataclysm. Now, if you're playing an AoE build for Destro, you're looking at something like this likely, which is mostly being played in plus your 2-minute Inferno build. You have Inferno, Crushing Chaos, Warlock Design, Purple Infernal, all that stuff, Madness. Now, the majority of your AoE, basically all of it outside of your Infernal and things, revolves around casting multiple Rain of Fires in a heavy AoE setting, which gives you more shard gen from Inferno, doing more damage, more shards means more Rain of Fire cast, which means a reduced cooldown on your Infernal by a Grand Warlock design, and more Blasphemy procs. It's basically a vicious cycle of just shard generation, more damage, more Infernals, all of that. Now, this build has been played for a long time since Shadowlands. I believe when Inferno was introduced. I think it was actually around before then, but wasn't as good. But either way, one of the main points people have talked about a lot when it comes to Destro AoE is that it's very good in sustained ramp settings. You can't go into a pack, put your Infernal down, drop Rain of Fires, and just start cranking insane damage like really bursty classes can. When packs live for a long time, in like 21, 22 hierarchies that are fortified, you pull multiple packs at once, Destro can obliterate it. When the pack is living for half a minute, you're getting insane Rain of Fire value with Inferno. But the problem is when you go into a trash pack or you're dropping your Infernal or whatever, it's sort of awkward when other classes can go in and just start swinging, putting up big dots. Even AF can go in and put a Vial Tank up, apply a Agony, Shadow can cast Shadow Crash for Vampiric Touch and Shadow Wear Pains and everything. But Destro runs in and has to go Immolate, and then put your Infernal down, then start putting out some Rain of Fires, and slowly ramp into your insane damage. Now, Cataclysm, one of the most exciting abilities to hit for Destro as a whole. It feels great running into a pack. It's like Vial Tank for Destro, basically. You run into a pack, it explodes, doing some damage, and applies Immolate to all enemies within 8 yards. You can even cap it at 8 targets, like Vial Tank, whatever, if you want to. It is like if this change happens. It isn't like I wouldn't love that, but it is what it is. But point being, I think a great quality of life change would be to change this row. Inferno is great, Rain of Fire is great, obviously. Make it like, you know, Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, then Inferno here, and then make a Cataclysm here. Pyrogenics, while it was legendary effect, Legion, it was the ring, I believe, from the Fire Ring, either way. It would be a minor nerf to our AoE, losing Pyrogenics, but honestly, I would trade Pyrogenics for baseline Cataclysm, or I guess like a non-choice note here, having a row go Rain of Fire, then Inferno, and then Cata, giving you both options and plus any day of the week. Pyrogenics hasn't been mentioned in any scenario, like in a very long time. You take it because you want to go into Inferno to get Rain of Fire value, right? Now you could put it Rain of Fire, Cataclysm, and then Inferno, if you want to like make it harder to get Inferno in the shard gen, that's fine. But Kata doesn't really even offer like an insane amount of snap damage, right? But being able to go into a pack and go Cataclysm CDF with Raging, or go even just Kata into Havoc, Conflagrate, Random Fire Spam feels so much better. It makes Destro's setup feel better. It feels like what AF has with Bile Taint, or it would if you actually played it over Inferno, or if it was both like just baseline, you know, non-choice nodes here. But either way, a great change. Number 1 point of feedback, make Cataclysm essentially baseline where you can just get it without choosing a talent node here, and give us Inferno as well. So like Random Fire into Inferno, into Kata, no more choice node here, or make it like Random Fire, Kata, Inferno if you want to gate Inferno behind Kata a bit more, for a bit more of an investment. But either way, that would go a tremendous way in Mythic Plus, AoE settings, or Destro. But honestly, you even cast Kata in single target. It just feels great to cast. I'd love to have it around. In that form. Now, moving on from there, so for the most part, I think the other parts of Destro's tree, like Rolling Havoc, Pandemonium Havoc, CDF, and Raging, they're all fine-ish. There are some tuning things that can be done, maybe. I don't want to play Soulfire, but it's over here either way. They're all okay-ish. Probably not worth hitting on as far as like large changes are concerned. I do wish Shadowburn was a bit more applicable in certain settings. I mean, it's sort of a fight design kind of thing, too. But it's definitely worth casting over Shadow Bolt and single target. It's sort of awkward. I wish Conflagration wasn't behind this also, but I don't really know how to restructure that or anything of the sort. Most of the points I want to hit on are towards the bottom-ish part of the Destro tree, being down here. Now, one thing I want to hit on, Crushing Chaos was changed in 10.15 to buff your Chaos Bolts whenever you cast Infernal. Feels really good, whether you're playing Grand Warlocks or not with this build. Good change. One thing that was not addressed is Infernal Brand. Now, Infernal Brand, I believe, used to be 15%. I think stacking 15 times in, I think, Alpha? It was a much larger percent than 3%, but it was nerfed a tremendous amount in Alpha or Beta. It was the exact same way, actually, in Shadowlands. It was a conduit, and it was like 15%, and it got nerfed to like 1.5 or 2%, which scaled over the course of the expansion, but it still wasn't very good at the end at all. I think you played it, it was like, eh. But either way, Infernal Brand has not been played in any setting for Destro at all, this whole expansion. Now, the cool thing is, like, it sort of feels like Crushing Chaos is maybe a bit better paired with Grand Warlock design, because you get more frequent Infernals for more frequent Crushing Chaos buffs. And Infernal Brand feels like it's sort of, in a sense, paired better with Reign of Chaos, because Reign of Chaos gives you more Infernals whenever you spend shards when your main Infernal's active, and those individual Infernals all get their own individual Infernal Brand buff. So, Crushing Chaos was changed, very cool. It feels great with Grand Warlock's design, but I wouldn't mind a world where Infernal Brand ends up being strong as well. If you're playing a build that is not, let's say in a fight like Khazara, one great example where it's like a 3.5 minute kill time. Whether you're playing, you see a lot of builds playing a build like this on Khazara, not playing Grand Warlock's design, playing a second point here in Burn to Ashes. Because if you play a build like this on Khazara, where it dies at 330, you're getting an Infernal at 0 and 2. Because you're playing 2-minute Infernal, but that third Infernal at 4 doesn't happen. The boss is dead. Now, if you play a build like this with no Grand Warlocks, your Infernal goes 0 and 3, but you're still getting 2 Infernals, because the fight ends at 330, right? So you get more value out of Burn to Ashes. Now, so it sort of makes sense. Now, I think the cool thing would be to have, you know, Crushing Chaos be relevant at times, maybe with Grand Warlock's design on fights where you want that 2-minute profile. But if you're in like a 3-minute profile or a fight like Khazara, if Infernal Brand was tuned, I guess properly, better, where it's relevant in those settings where you don't want the Grand Warlock's design value, you could play Infernal Brand maybe into Reign of Chaos, giving you still a very strong Infernal, bringing Reign of Chaos with it, giving you like more value out of your Chaos Bolts in a sense, because like they're summoning Infernals, more shard gen, and your Infernals, you know, have their Infernal Brand value. It would be two similar but different damage profiles. It'd be really exciting to play with, and maybe there'd be some crossover with like maybe Reign of Chaos and Plus at certain points in time. Possibly, probably not. It's still an option now, but either way, I feel like more in those single target settings where you can get that Infernal Brand value, it'd be really cool to see it become a bit more competitive. If that makes sense, right? Because like Crushing Chaos has single target relevancy, it has cleave relevancy with Havoc and things, cleaving Chaos Bolts, and it has AoE relevancy in Rain of Fire spam. But Infernal Brand is more or less limited to single target, right? You can basically tab target different mobs, your Infernal will follow you around, but you can't apply Infernal Brand to every mob you're AoEing. So Infernal Brand, and I guess sort of in this sense, almost Random Chaos if it's paired with it, has more of a single target emphasis maybe, at least in my eyes. But either way, Infernal Brand hasn't really been competitive all the expansion. Wouldn't mind seeing Infernal Brand tuned a little bit. If it spawns some cool builds, awesome. If not, not much changes, but I think it needs some attention because it's not very strong in any setting. So the next couple talent points I want to hit on are basically Madness and Dimensional Rift. Now, Madness is a powerhouse when it comes to Destro. It greatly buffs your Chaos Bolt, it reduces the cast time of Chaos Bolt, and it also buffs the damage of Rain of Fire. Now, in settings where you're casting Rain of Fire, basically AoE settings like this, you're typically spamming Rain of Fires back to back a million times, which is being fueled by Inferno and Fast Infernals, all of that. So Madness, providing a 25% buff to your Rain of Fire damage, is very, very strong. At the same time, casting Chaos Bolts, making them hit harder, reducing the cast time is great. Also allows you to chain Chaos Bolts more and maintain Madness even longer. So it also fuels more Madness cast or uptime, right? Now, the thing with Madness, Destro is incredibly stationary. Even more so this tier by having to stand still and cast Channel Demon Fire, where I have to just cancel half the time anyways, so I get a mechanic on me. It's very, very stationary. Now, you can cast Conflict Rate on the move as like your only on the move spell, but you don't necessarily, you can, but like it's a charge-based effect, and it's not really a great example of a cast on the move kind of spell. And there's nothing besides that at all. Rain of Fire, you don't cast that. You don't even play that in single target, right? You would never cast it in single target on the move. Now, Madness initially during beta was 4 seconds long. Dread Touch for Affliction was 6 seconds long up until I think 10.1, where we talked about it a bit and said, hey, it's a bit too short. Can we increase the duration? Dread Touch is a maintenance buff. You maintain Dread Touch by rapturing once every 6 seconds, now 8 seconds in 10.1, to maintain the effect. Madness was 4 seconds in alpha and beta, and it was increased to 5 seconds. That is still a second shorter than the baseline duration of Malefic Rapture before it got buffed to 8 seconds. I believe DK's had a similar effect too, where it was buffed from 6 to 8, or I think 8 to 10 or something like that. Either way, Destro is very immobile. Buffing Madness's duration won't necessarily change that, but it makes it less punishing when you have to move in the middle of casting Chaos Bolts. Everyone's been there on a million different fights where you're casting Chaos Bolts, maintaining Madness, weaving bolts, and you go Bolt, and you get a mechanic on you. Oh, now I gotta run, and then, great, now my Madness falls, I'm losing uptime, I gotta cast Bolt, and then Bolt, filler spell, Bolt again to get it back up, and then at the move again, it's awkward. Making Madness's duration, like 8 seconds baseline would go a very, very, very long way for Destro, and while it still would be relatively immobile, it would make the class feel so much better in basically every scenario, everywhere, anywhere where you cast Chaos Bolt. Now, like I said, it's not a great fixed mobility issue Destro has, but it would be a huge quality of life increase, just like Dread Touch for AF from 6 to 8, just like whatever the DK thing was from 6 to 10 or whatever they got. I would love to see Madness's duration increase to 8 seconds. 8 seconds, 10 be even better. I think 8 is a solid starting point where you can tweak and tune it more if need be. You want to have some level of like, hey, I need to like subliminally maintain this buff in the back of your head, right? But 5 seconds is pretty short. It allows for very little spells in between Chaos Bolt casts and a very precarious rotation. Like I said, movement comes along and Godspeed your damage. So, moving on to Madness. Now, the next ability here is going to be Dimensional Rift. Dimensional Rift shares a node with Chaos Incarnate. Chaos Incarnate buffs Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadowburn damage, so Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire damage, gives you the maximum mastery benefit from your mastery. So it gives you basically, it gives you the maximum damage you can get from your mastery every Chaos Bolt cast or Rain of Fire cast. Very strong. It helps, like, I guess, Destro's consistent sustained damage. It's a good talent. You play it everywhere. Now, the thing is that it is played in single target, but it has universal applicability, right? It can be played in single target. It's played in Havoc Cleave. It's played in Mass AoE. And it's paired against Dimensional Rift. Dimensional Rift is iconic. This is a Legion ability where you had Shadowy Tear, Unstable Tear, Chaos Tear, where you open holes in time. It was literally your artifact ability from Legion. Everybody loves it. It's awesome to play with, but it's never played in PvE. Now, it was buffed in 10.1.5, I believe, by 15%, but in my recent sims, it's behind Chaos Incarnate by about 2,000 DPS. Now, I could use some buff still, obviously. I sort of envision a world where Dimensional Rift is your go-to in single target, and Chaos Incarnate can be your go-to in like Havoc Cleave, because you're casting basically Cleave Chaos Bolts. You're hitting 2 targets. An ability like this that grants you permanent max mastery benefit it scales more in a sense. You're hitting 2 targets a good bit of time, or mass AoE like Mythic Plus, where you're rain of firing a bunch, hitting multiple targets. You can benefit more from that max mastery scaling effect in these 2+ or 8+ target settings. But in single target, I think it'd be cool if they buffed Dimensional Rift to a point where it's better than Chaos Incarnate. It gives a little bit of mobility. Like, you wouldn't really hold the cooldown, but if there's planned movement coming where you know one of your rifts is coming off CD, maybe hold it for a few seconds, you can cast it on the move. It's iconic, it feels really cool. It helps with cryo swapping a little bit if you hold cooldown like stacks for it. It's an awesome ability. I love to play with it, but in a world where Chaos Incarnate is just as strong as it is, or I guess more or less in a world where this is undertuned, or I guess not tuned as highly in single target comparatively to Chaos Incarnate, it's just not going to see play. It's a single target ability. The tears don't cleave. There's no AoE relevancy, no Havoc relevancy. But Chaos Incarnate has AoE relevancy. It has Havoc relevancy, and it has single target relevancy. So would love to see buffs to Dimensional Rift, making it your go-to in single target. It would feel great for Destro. If you gave the Dimensional Rift buffs to be better in single target than Chaos Incarnate and Cataclysm, like Rain of Fire, Cata, Inferno, I would love Destro for the rest of my life. It would be so much fun. And yeah, I guess, I don't know. Fingers crossed for buffs to Dimensional Rift as well. Now, the last thing here I want to hit on, last or one of the last, is Burn to Ashes. Now, we cited Destro's lack of mobility a few minutes ago, and it is very immobile. Once again, only conflict rate you can cast in the move. And Burn to Ashes is an odd ability. So it stacks up to 6 times, whether you have 1 point in it or 2. The same thing. It buffs it's a Chaos Bolt and Rain of Fire increase the damage of your next 2 incinerates by 15% or 30% at rank 2 out of 2. Now, this makes it so that Chaos Bolt and Incinerate are pretty close to each other when it comes to like your damage profiles. With Crushing Chaos being a thing now, Chaos Bolt has pulled ahead a bit more compared to before 10.15. But Burn to Ashes makes Incinerates hit really hard still, right? Now, when it comes to mobility, I'm tying this together here. Burn to Ashes has this odd effect where it stacks 6 times. You never drop below like 2 stacks of Burn to Ashes. Very, very rarely, because you gain 2 stacks whenever you cast a Chaos Bolt or a Rain of Fire, and you're casting typically Chaos Bolt, X spell, Chaos Bolt, or Chaos Bolt, maybe a spell or 2 in between, and then Chaos Bolt. You never drop, like, you stack this to 6 basically on pull, and never drop below like 3 stacks. It used to be a max stack of 4 in 10.0. You never drop below 2 stacks at that point anyways, maybe 1. The effect rarely ever falls. Now, I don't know how you would actually... There's a few different ways you can approach this. I feel like if you cut the stack count like to 2 stacks max, or like, I don't know, maybe like 3 stacks max, right? I'm wondering if there's some way to make this work where possibly it makes like your next Incinerate castable while moving, or more or less castable while moving or instant cast. Now, I don't know how you would flag it as to like, okay, well, you're moving so you can cast Incinerate instantly now. There might be a way to do that, but if you're stationary, it still has a hard cast time on it. But I feel like somehow tweaking or tuning Burn to Ashes would go a long way, and it could quite possibly be the key to unlocking, or I guess like sort of, I guess, fixing Destro's lack of mobility. Like I said, you really never drop below like 2 stacks, and if you do, you can literally stack it right back to 2, 4, 6 by going Chaos Bolt, or Chaos Bolt, Conflict, Chaos Bolt, or even Chaos Bolt, Incinerate, Chaos Bolt, right? So I know that we've had a lot of discussions about like Destro and casting while moving and things. Kill Jaden's Cunning, I love it. It's a cool ability. Not coming back. I know Shamans have it. I know Evokers have it. I know Mages have it. It's not coming back. There's been feedback given a bunch on it. It's obvious it's not in the cards, but I think Burn to Ashes could be retooled, possibly maybe shift some damage out of it back into Chaos Bolt. I might need some buffs and nerfs, or some nerfs to its like Incinerate contribution damage wise. But if you made this an ability where you could cast Incinerate while moving, or maybe like make it so that you can cast and Incinerate instantly if your character is moving, some way to help Destro's mobility, I think it's doable. And you can maintain the stack still pretty easily. Having Chaos Bolt as your generator feels fine. I don't know the exact solution, but I feel like there's something there, and it could be the key to unlocking Destro's lack of mobility when it comes to basically everything. And the last thing that I want to hit on here quickly is going to be Grand Warlock design. Now, we hit on it a little bit in the Clash Tree video that came out a few days ago. If you haven't seen it, check it out on the channel. The thing with with Grand Warlock design is that it's a talent in every single spec tree, and I think if that's the case for any talent, for any class, that it should be considered as an option to maybe become part of the Clash tree. Now, the issue with having Grand Warlock's design in the Clash tree, we talked about it a bit in the 10.1 feedback video as well, not as much in the, the Clash tree video, because we already talked about it a bit ago. But either way, is that if you put Grand Warlock's design in the Clash tree, it means that your Infernal, your Dark Lair, and your Tyrant, you have to they have to either become baseline abilities that are part of just like the core Warlock spellbook without any talents being here, or you run into the potentially issue of having Grand Warlock's design selected in the Clash tree, but not having Infernal or Tyrant or Dark Lair as a talent in your spec trees. Now, for the most part, it's pretty easy to sort of decipher, hey, if I'm playing this ability that says it reduces the cooldown of this talent in my spec tree, and this is over here, I should choose this talent for Destro, Demo, and Affliction. If you're a newer player, it shouldn't be that hard to pick up on, and if you're a player copying a guide or anything talent-wise, those talents should be correct. Now, in the end, I mean, there might be some certain times where maybe somebody doesn't really understand, hey, I need my Infernal with my, if I'm playing this, I need to play my Infernal, or my Dark Lair, or my Tyrant. But let's be honest, you play these pets baseline for every single spec, right? Now, Dark Lair might not be as impactful as Tyrant, but they're still your main cooldown, and you play them as part of every single spec, whether it's Destro, Demo, or AF. Now, if you don't want to put it in the Clash tree, I think another solution to keeping it, or I guess getting it as a solo node in the spec tree for destruction, we talked about Infernal Brand a bit, a little bit ago, but I wanted to save this part to this part of the video, would be possibly leaving Grand Warlock's design here as a capstone, having it build out of your Infernal talent, which makes sense because you want to have it paired with your Infernal if you're playing it in the spec tree, if you want to keep it over here, right? But replace Infernal Brand with Reign of Chaos. So it goes Summon Infernal, either Crashing Chaos in Grand Warlock's design, or Summon Infernal, Reign of Chaos being right here, and then Grand Warlock's design. Now, you might need to tune Reign of Chaos a little bit to have it as a node here leading into Grand Warlock's design. Maybe not. I'm not really sure. We did indeed have that interaction in Shadowlands in S3 and 4, but the big thing with that until late S4 was that, yes, we had, Minute Infernal or 2-Minute Infernal, and we had Reign of Chaos, but we also had, when we were playing the AoE build, you had your 2-piece from Sepulchre and 4-piece triggering Reign of Chaos from your Blasphemies. That was fixed in S4. It was nerfed. It doesn't work that way in Dragonflight. So if you're thinking of what you had initially in Shadowlands with S3 and everything, you wouldn't have that level of degeneracy. Nowhere near it, honestly. Now, could there be some tuning needed? Possibly. Who knows? But if you want to buff Infernal Brand and make it relevant, that's fine. But at the same time, Reign of Chaos hasn't been played anywhere. I don't think even in PvP, but certainly not in PvE, the entire expansion. And having it here, leading into Grand Warlock's design, if you want to keep it in the Clash tree, would be really cool. It gives you the option of playing Crashing Chaos, which gives you, a buff to your Rain of Fires, a buff to your Chaos Bolts, adding value to your Infernal, which leads into Grand Warlock's design. Or if you want to go for a bit of a different route, which gives you more shard gen, maybe a bit of a shorter cooldown on your Infernal when pairing it with Grand Warlock's design, because Reign of Chaos gives you more shard gen, but still value tied to your Infernal, you can go the Reign of Chaos route. If you really want, if a build emerges, maybe you play a build that just goes straight up like, I don't know, full on like Crashing Chaos, Reign of Chaos being here, Grand Warlock's design, and whatever else over here. Not really sure, but it gives you a lot of options behind your Infernal. And Destro with a 2-Minute Infernal, whether it's beefed up, playing Reign of Chaos, Infernal Brand, Crashing Chaos, whatever, or maybe like a middle round kind of Infernal, just playing Crashing Chaos and Grand Warlock's design. Either way, a 2-Minute Infernal with Destro feels so much better than a 3-Minute Infernal. We do have 2-Minute Infernal now regardless, just playing Crashing Chaos and Grand Warlock's design, but either way, this is sort of a point trying to work in both Reign of Chaos in some form with Grand Warlock's design in Destro's 10.2 I guess, potential builds, because I'd love Reign of Chaos being relevant again. Really cool ability, but hasn't seen any play, and I wanted to hit on Grand Warlock's design as well. Number one, possibly being in the Clash tree. If not, maybe desyncing or decoupling the node in the spec tree and putting this here, because if I didn't hit on Grand Warlocks regardless, somehow, some way, someone's gonna get mad at me. So there you go, but at the same time, if you compare Reign of Chaos and Grand Warlocks together, would be just so much fun. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like I sort of said, I don't think Destro's in a bad spot. It's arguably the highest simming single target spec we have, right up there with Destro, or right up there with Demo, I'm sorry. And It is not meta in Plus, but if things like Fire Mage, Shadow, and Augmentation were hit, Destro brings a pretty unique and strong damage profile in heavy sustained AoE with 2-minute Infernal, Madness, and Inferno, and I don't think it's maybe even that far off of being close to being meta. We even saw it played, I think, in a Vortex Pinnacle this weekend in TGP, so we'll see where it goes. Out of all things mentioned, I do really, really hope that they consider taking Inferno and Cataclysm that share that hybrid node choice and making them, you know, like I said, Rain of Fire into either Cata or Inferno, move the spot there, and then put Cataclysm at the bottom. Having Cata and Inferno at the same time would go a long way in making Destro feel a lot better in Plus, and I really don't think it would be too strong. I really don't. It would emulate to a handful of mobs, but the thing is, playing Inferno, it would give a bit more periodic shard gen when they tick, but you're still rolling a few Inferno or a few immolates going into a pack. And honestly, when you get rolling with Inferno value from Rain of Fire, you have so many shards regardless, it would make a bit of a difference, but it would just feel better. It would give Destro a little more snap-on-demand burst damage, but Cata's not even that big in the first place when it comes to snap-on-demand burst. It would feel better rotationally, toolkit-wise, and all that, so we'll see where it goes. Like I said, weekly add-ons and profiles, like always, links to Twitch and Discord down below. They're all for free for you guys. At the same time, before we end the video, I want to give a huge shout-out to my patrons again for all support on Patreon, guys. Thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. If you want to support on Patreon or follow on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that up here, well, yeah, links up here. So, yeah. Like I said, in 10.15, Destro got a handful of changes. The Grand Warlock's design Crashing Chaos build feels good. I like having Crashing around. That overhaul is solid. It's like old Ghost Up, sort of. Having 2-minute Infernal when it's applicable on raid fights and in Plus feels good. I feel like Destro with 2-minute Infernal, Crashing Chaos build, and full Ritual Avatar, Purple Infernal, so and then just having 2 points of Madness feels fine in Plus. It doesn't feel incredibly strong at any one thing, but it feels solid. When you have your Infernal, your damage feels really good. When you don't, it feels fine-ish, but Madness, since short duration, still pose problems at times, and mobility is Destro's, well, not strong suit. So we'll see where it goes. But all that being said, if you have any questions or comments or concerns or anything, or I guess any ideas about Destro, put it down below in the comment section. I'll check it out and do my best to get back to you. And yeah, all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. Helps out a ton. And once again, the feedback document linked down below in the description as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.